It's Monday, and you know what that means. Added time answering your questions on the channel. Lots of great questions once again regarding Chelsea, the game yesterday, the squad, all of that good stuff. Apologies to those I can't get to each week, but thank you for your constant interaction and making this show Added Time what it is every week, because it really means the world to me. But let's get to your questions. Firstly here from Kwame, who asks, does Hakim Ziyech's performances concern you? I think in many ways, yes. I think, yesterday I was quite harsh on him, probably a little bit too harsh. I mean, generally Chelsea lacked creativity in the final third. We lacked the urgency, the guile, the clinical nature. I mean, that is something we've lacked for a while. So, it's hard to sort of pin that all on Ziyech. And I think that maybe I was a little bit too harsh. I mean, I do think his performance in the first half was seriously lacking in terms of energy. And I do still think that unless Callum got injured, I think he would have been taken off at half time. I do also think you need to put into context a lot of things. I think Ziyech, fitness-wise, it's difficult for him because it's almost like this. It's a tough cycle for him to be in because Chelsea need results. Ziyech hasn't got a lot of fitness in him. And when he's put on the pitch like yesterday, you want him to perform. You want Chelsea to be dominant in the final third and for him to be sort of a creative outlet. When he's not, people criticise him. He doesn't get put in the next game. And it's difficult for Ziyech, who needs minutes at the moment, to really flourish. I don't think he can play for like the under-23s at the moment with the whole bubble situation that goes on. We're not in pre-season. There's no easy games at the moment for him to really get that fitness back. I think for me, Ziyech, maybe it's him getting off the bench, for instance, in a game and creating something, and maybe confidence-wise, because I'm sure confidence, despite him being a player that does have that natural swagger and self-belief, clearly has deteriorated. I think as the season's gone on, there's been so many factors. Lockdown, he spoke about that a few weeks ago, moving to a new country, having a new league, a new manager halfway through the season as well, and he's not a guaranteed starter at the moment. I think the creativity is there. This team lacks someone with the vision to break down defences. It's easy to forget that Ziyech earlier in the season was providing that for this Chelsea team. Unfortunately, he got injured and that knocked him back. It knocks a lot of players back, and I really hope Ziyech can make it at Chelsea. I think it's very silly to write him off, but at the moment I can't be dishonest in what I'm seeing. For him, I hope it does work out, because I think there is a player in there that can work very well in this system. But I think, Tuchel needs results. I think there are better performing, more consistent players at the moment. So I probably wouldn't start him on Thursday. So I think it's difficult for him, but we need to be patient with Ziyech and hopefully he comes good in the Chelsea shirt. Lucid FC asks, and sponsor of the channel, great guys, which current Chelsea player has the best fashion sense off the pitch? I'll go with Kovacic. I love the Insta photos he posts recently, especially with coffee cups out and about with Starbucks in London. I think a man of great culture, great swagger. So I'm probably going to say Mateo Kovacic, and I think players in the squad have said that as well, so I'm going to go with Kova. Fifi asks, Tuchel leaving Tammy out of the squad and having both Alonso and Emerson on the bench doesn't make sense to me at all. What's your take on that? It was a bit confusing yesterday, I think for different reasons. I mean, pre-match when Tammy wasn't in the squad and we saw two left-backs like Emerson and Alonso on the bench, Matt Law reported that it could have been something to do with his injury, his ankle injury recently, and that's why he wasn't fully fit to be in the squad. Completely understandable. But then the fact that Tuchel pre and post match didn't use that reason, didn't say Tammy wasn't ready for today's game, that's why he wasn't on the bench. It's just a bit confusing. Chelsea are not a team with a lot of goals in them at the moment. Whatever your opinions are on Tammy, that we don't have our top goal scorer on the bench, or at least that option off the bench, having two strikers like Timo and Tammy on the bench if you need them later on in the game. It was just a bit confusing to me, and I don't think it makes a lot of sense in all truth if Tuchel maybe just didn't bring up the fitness concern. But I hope that's the reason, because if it's not, it's just a bit of a concern to me. Tammy, I think, didn't perform recently that well, but I think has done a lot of good for Chelsea this season. I think, in terms of top goal scorer, he's Chelsea's top goal scorer. I think people really underappreciate Tammy Abraham. So yeah, it's just a bit confusing to me, and I think it's worrying for Tammy Abraham. If he wasn't injured and then he wasn't in the squad and there were two left backs ahead of him on that bench, I'm not sure what that says about what Tuchel actually thinks about Tammy Abraham. And I think as a team, if we're letting our top goal scorer miss out a game like that where we don't score and don't look that threatening in the final third, I think you have to ask questions. CT asks, do you think we could start to see Pulisic feature more regularly if the team continues to struggle scoring? Despite his lack of form at the moment, it seems like his ability to create for himself plus others could present a solution. Curious to hear your thoughts. Yeah, Pulisic for me, he is lacking form. He is lacking sort of that match fitness, a bit like Hakim Ziyech, I'm sure, a bit like Kai Havertz too. Hasn't played tons under Thomas Tuchel, and that was one player for me who I did think would get a lot of minutes under Tuchel given their previous history at Borussia Dortmund. Pulisic for me is a player that has that anticipation to be in the right place at the right time. Unfortunately, we haven't seen it a lot this season because of injury, because of him not being a guaranteed starter. I would like to see him in this team a bit more. There's so many players up in that position, to be honest. And, I think that it's hard for me to justify Pulisic starting games at the moment because, I think it's unfair on other players. I don't think Pulisic is doing, a bit like Ziyech, I don't think he's doing tons for me to really argue that he should be a guaranteed starter. But then you could argue Chelsea didn't look that good in front of goal with the players we did have, and Pulisic came off the bench and made a couple things yesterday. Didn't look that threatening to me, but does have that anticipation. I think Pulisic is very good at making those central runs. I think that's where he's at his best, to be honest. And I do think that the false nine thing that's been brought up a lot of the time, I think that could work in a similar nature for Christian Pulisic, to be honest. I do think this is a guy that likes drifting in from the left, making those diagonal runs that I think really trouble defences. And I do feel at times when a team presses up higher, like Man United yesterday, you don't really want Olivier Giroud because he isn't going to have that much of an impact on the game. He can sort of be marked out the game, in truth, and that's where you want more pace. I think there were many times yesterday in the first half, especially when Man United were pressing up and we did get past their press, you wanted more pace alongside Mason Mount. You wanted more pace with Timo Werner as well, and Christian Pulisic can add that too. I think he'll get more game time because just rotation, but I could see that happening, especially Tuchel needs to find answers for these attacking problems, right? And Pulisic could provide that, absolutely. Matthew asked what happens to Andreas Christensen when Thiago Silva comes back. He's played so well recently and doesn't deserve to get dropped, but they both play in the middle of a back three. It's difficult. Christensen is proving me wrong at the moment. He's playing really well. I think he's getting the credit he absolutely deserves. It's great to see him stepping in for Thiago Silva. I have seen this brought up. I don't think you can not play Thiago Silva. I think this is the issue, right? And Dave and Rudiger have been playing well as well. So it's tough to drop either of those players. I think Thiago Silva is just a world-class defender, and I want him back in this team. I just think it's a difficult situation for any player at the moment. There are so many options Tuchel has. I just think a leader like Thiago Silva, when we get into, say, the Atletico Madrid second leg, which hopefully, fingers crossed, he'll be ready for, you could see Christensen move to, say, Dave's position, but it's tough, isn't it? Because I think Christensen is playing well, but I think he's in a system that really suits his game, and he does have that license to be on the ball a little bit more, have that protection from Dave and Rudiger next to him. But Thiago Silva is so exemplary for Chelsea this season. He's one of our best performers alongside Mason Mount. You want him back in his team. It's difficult, mate. It really is. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I think that Thiago Silva is just an exceptional footballer. Christensen's playing some of the best football of his career recently. It's tough, it really is, and it may just be a harsh decision for Christensen. But Chelsea have a lot of games. So Christensen, despite maybe being taken out for Thiago Silva soon in, say, a Premier League game, could come back for another game if we have a lot of midweek games coming up. So that may help Christensen for game time as well. Pissers Drama, who is a great friend of mine on Twitter, a great account, definitely suggest you go and follow her. As we've seen, this system is helping us defensively and in the midfield, but it does hurt some of our best players. Do you think we have to switch to a back four? And if so, should it be this season or the next one? A lot of questions about formation, and that I think naturally comes up, especially offensively, because Chelsea look a little bit blunt at the moment up front. We look toothless. We look like a team who struggle when we get into the final third. And you do think if we were, say, to switch to a more progressive 4-3-3 or a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-2-2-2, something like that, that could help us offensively. But I do think it's that risk-reward thing that I think Tuchel is struggling with at the moment, because I think you need to understand that there is a problem for me with Chelsea at the moment, and I think it's slap bang in the middle of the park with Chelsea, central midfield. And if you do go a little bit more progressive, as we saw yesterday, there is that concern of teams that can hit us on the break. We know the limitations of Jorginho. We know the limitations of even Kante as a lone DM. If you go into that system, Chelsea have struggled in the past. Christensen, for instance, I think works wonderfully in the middle of a back three, not so much in a back two. I think you'll see limitations in his game there. And Chelsea have shown an issue of dealing with transitions and leaving lots of space in the middle of the park. So I think that's what Tuchel, that's why I think he's sticking to not a reactive system. I don't think it's a defensive system. I think because Chelsea want a lot more of the ball, I just think he's being quite pragmatic with the options he has. I do think next season will be the time, if we get certain signings in, I think he will be a little bit more progressive, and I think we will maybe move to a back four. What that means for certain personnel at the moment, I really don't know. But I think if Chelsea want to win the league next season, I don't think this system is going to work, because I do think you need to be, in games like the yesterday, I do think you need to be a little bit more risk taking. I think you need to be a little bit more bold and brave, like Man City we see. If you want to win the Premier League now, you can't just sit back for the whole season. You have to be a lot more progressive. You have to try and take the game to the opposition, which I think was what impressed me against Atletico Madrid. But I think that's the issue Chelsea have, of being a lot more potent in the final third. I think this system, as I've seen people point out, is you need, if you're going to play a little bit more cautiously, you need your attack to be a lot more deadly in front of goal. And unfortunately, Chelsea don't have that at the moment, but there is a risk-reward strategy that we have seen with this team that unfortunately has let us down at times. Only a pound asked, great, only a pound. CFC UK, I'm a writer for CFC UK. The latest fanzine is out today, actually. Link in the description box below. Details in the description box below if you want to go and read it. I'm a contributor to it. My latest piece is about Thomas Tuchel. Speaking about Tuchel, I write for the fanzine monthly, so please go and support CFC UK. But he asks, as the extremely wise and very popular Smithy Eaststand once said, Chelsea have been the world's greatest team since 1905. How long do you think their glorious reign will continue? Forever. Chelsea will forever be the greatest team in history. There's no doubt about that. Despite our frustration, despite our concern, to me, Chelsea will always be the world's greatest team, and that's never going to change in my eyes. And finally, RJ asks, given our defence has been pretty resolute, what do you think our best midfield and frontline combinations are at the moment? I feel like I've been asked this question all season. I feel like I was asked this question most of last season, and I couldn't give you a firm answer. And I think if Chelsea want to move on from the battle for top four, I have to have a better answer for that. Because if Tuchel wants to take this team from a team that battles for top four to a team that can actually seriously contend for the Premier League title against a team as good as Man City, I can't be so confused. I know this is a coach who does like to be tactically flexible, who does like to change things up, but I still feel there's that confusion isn't there, I think, with a lot of parts. I feel that Jorginho and Kovacic are great for certain games where Chelsea will have a lot of the ball and are coming up against a team who aren't that offensive and aren't going to give you that much problem on the break. That's where you want N'Golo Kante. But as I said in my review yesterday, there is issues. There is a paradox in that midfield, because whilst you can have the solidity of Kante and the solidity maybe a little bit more of Mateo Kovacic mobility in that midfield, you don't have the passing range or the metronome type player of Jorginho, but Jorginho does have his own frailties, doesn't he? And that's why I think he wasn't started against Man United yesterday, and why Chelsea, I think, looked a lot more resolute against transition. So I feel unless we get a natural DM, that's a problem there. I feel in the front line, either Tuchel can get Pulisic, Ziyech, Havertz, Mount, Werner, a combination that really works and makes Chelsea really threatening in attack, or we go out and sign some players that make us better. That'll be, I think, the solution. And I think we know Chelsea, they're going to go out and sign more players. So hopefully that could be the answer. But until then, mate, I don't have the best answer for you, unfortunately. But that is it for this edition of Added Time. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch it. If you did enjoy it, hit that subscribe button and a notification bell so you never miss an upload. Follow me on Twitter at SonOfChelsea. Have a great day, and I'll see you again.